The 1620, The Zone.
Mike Ferrin, Sirius XM MLB Network Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, now singing the Mike Ferrin Open, it's Mike Stibbs.
Just make sure it sounds sexy, Stibbs.
Lord Almighty, how can you stand Arizona? Your fair skin must be burning down into your absent soul. Mike, 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 we can barely hear you. It sounds to me like you called us from inside a hole. But your phone calls lift me higher, like the ERA of Mark Pryor. Your hair looks like it's on fire. You're Mike Ferrin. You're just a hunk of burning love.
Here he is.
Just a hunk of burning love.
It's too bad we didn't have
like
9 different squares so we could have Mike Ferrin in the center square. And in the center square, Mike will get that reference. That's an old.
What am I, Charles Nelson Riley?
No, Charles Nelson Riley was always on Match Game. Who was?
Well, he was also.
Was he in Hollywood Squares?
Yeah, he was in the later edition. He was not Paul Lind. You're thinking of Paul Lind.
Paul
Lind.
Paul Lib?
Lind.
Paul Lind was an actor.
Google him.
Yeah,
hey,
Google.
Can I say something before we get started on baseball? You do realize that when you're caught speaking on a hot mic, that it's never actually out of context, right? Like, despite what you may say that, oh man, that was taken out of context. No, we literally heard what you said on a hot microphone. It's not out of context.
Well, Mike, you got to realize this is the state that gave us Bo Pelini audio,
and then Bo Pelini audio,
more Bo Pelini audio.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not very good at the whole hot mic thing here. A lot of we find out a lot of things through hot mics.
Yeah, apparently you're not good at keeping secrets or context either. So,
well.
That is an institute of higher learning, right? So, like, why would they know about things like context? I'm sure that whoever's the professor at Nebraska's journalism school has to be going, oh, God, now I got to teach this crap again.
I know those guys.
Just to our university president.
Yeah. What is the most famed hot mic episode in Major League Baseball? Is there one like this where they were being recorded?
Or also maybe in Mike Ferrin's career.
Or in Mike Ferrin's career.
Oh, in Mike Ferrin's career. Let's see. Yeah, there was a famous one where I took a not so veiled shot at a farm director for a team who I used a 4-letter word for, but he really did deserve it. And I think most people agreed with me. So I feel like I was
nice
speaking out of turn necessarily in that. The most famous hot mic in baseball. Well, my favorite is Burt Blyleven. Right, you know the Burt Blyleven story, right? This is probably about 10 years ago. They were doing the Open to a Twins broadcast, and he was stumbling through the Open, and he goes, blanket will do it live. Yeah. And then there's this pause, and he goes, oh! That unfortunately led to his.
Well, yes, we just had a hot mic episode, and because of that, now Kevin Kugler's on Fox NFL Sunday.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Some of the other hot mic moments, I mean, Hal McRae's explosion, Lee Elia's explosion.
Well, those aren't necessarily, those weren't ones where you're hot mics. Yeah, they just happened to be I mean, they were in press conference settings. So those are good ones. I mean, I think the guy John Boy who does the videos where like he kind of got a hot mic on the whole the Aaron Boone, the Savages in the Box thing last year. I mean, that was pretty great, So I don't know. There's not always a whole lot of. There hasn't been historically a lot of hot mic in baseball games. This year they've tried to do it a little different, right? They've had some players mic'd up even in the course of action on some of the national games of the week, which I think is really cool. So I'd like to see us continue to do that.
Well, the big story today is it looks like we now have an agreement, players and owners. Isn't it nice that they can come to an agreement on something rather quickly versus, taking months on end like they did to start the season?
And like the Big Ten?
Yeah, and like the Big Ten. But we're going to have a playoff bubble. But I think the interesting thing is when we look at this is there's not going to be any days off in the division series. They're going to play 5 straight. Typically it was two day off, 2 day off, 1 because they were traveling back and forth. So what this does is it really puts the emphasis on teams that have deeper pitching staffs, because now, Mike, you pretty much have to be able to go 4 deep. Do you see any teams that maybe this plays a greater advantage to of the playoff teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one you see is the Dodgers, right? I mean, that's the first one that comes to mind. Maybe Tampa Bay, although they've had so many injuries with their pitching that I think would be another that you could see impacting them. I mean, I actually really like this, that there's no off days in the division series. They're going to play all 3 games in a row in the wild card round too. Was there one off day in the LCS? I just got the schedule, so I think that there's one off day, right? They're playing them 7 games over the course of 8 days, so it's a little different.
I'll take a look, because I was kind of focused on the first 2 rounds. I'll double
that's
check.
When the Cubs will be playing.
Well, yeah, they'll be playing in the first round and then nothing else. But I believe you're right. I believe there is at least a space in between, but it's going to put a premium on pitching, as it always does, but even more so now, because the ability to turn around a number 1 and pitch, 3 or 4 days later, all of a sudden kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's kind of exciting about it is like 5th starters matter, right? Like whoever's starting 5th in your rotation is going to matter in this. And, will we see a starter come back on 3 days rest, to pitch a game 4 if their season is on the line? Or, are you going to try and get through it? Would you see multiple guys go short rest in an effort to try and get through it in a shorter number of days? I think all of that's really interesting with it. And I'm excited to see how that plays out, because I think that's a fun quirk. There haven't been a whole lot of fun quirks this year, but that's one of them.
Actually, there are no days off.
No days off in the league championship.
The LCS goes straight through.
And what's the World Series schedule?
Normal.
No, okay.
Yeah.
So it's 2-3-2.
2-3-2. But yes, the ALCS is scheduled to start on Sunday, October the 11th, and it runs straight through to Saturday, October 17th. Yeah. And then the NLCS is staggered, starting on that Monday, the 12th, and running straight through to Sunday, the 18th. So no days off in either of those best of
Bill
sevens.
Belichick doing the schedule.
Bill Belichick
Mike,
is doing.
You know where I find
everybody's
this so in the NBA,
we're on to Cincinnati.
There have been some talks lately about the lack of having to travel and how that's been really good for the play on the floor. But I like what John just brought up about this from a pitching standpoint, because baseball players are basically used to playing all the time, every day in a row, outside of a day or two, throughout the season, every other week or whatever it is. So I don't know. I find that's interesting, where in basketball, it's been like really good that they don't have to travel, and maybe this could end up being bad for some teams and their pitching staffs.
Well, I think the other part is that you can't get away with being thin and just using 7 pitchers or 6 pitchers to be able to get through a postseason series like Washington did or like Boston did. And so it plays more like regular season baseball. And clearly there's an advantage to the teams that were built deeper for a 162 game season to have this. So yeah, I mean, it's, I'm assuming that the rosters, I think the rosters are going to be set at 28, just like they were for the regular season. So they're going to be a little bit deeper to begin with. And I do think that play, that bodes well for those teams that have a ton of pitching depth in particular, because if you have a starter get blown out early in one of your starts, you might be able to cover it or be able to go to your bullpen a little bit earlier. So I think, like I just said, I think Tampa Bay is in good position. I think the Dodgers are in a good position. Miami might be in a good position. Their bullpen's been pretty good. Their starters are excellent. That might better position them in a series, and they're kind of one of the fun teams anyway.
I got to wonder what it does for the Chicago White Sox, who are really hot right now. In fact, if the playoffs started today, they would be your number 1 seed in the American League, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting. I know there were some, and I thought they had a chance to make the playoffs this year, especially when they expanded it. I don't know what you think, Mike, but when I watch this team, it's very reminiscent of the 2015 Cubs. We knew that this was a team on the rise, but they're arriving a year early. And I wonder, what that's going to make for them in the postseason, because the Cubs actually went pretty deep until they got swept by the Mets.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting is that there's this perception of the White Sox as just being a slug at all costs team, and they are. I mean, listen, I think they're 3rd in the majors in home runs, and they're 2nd in, like weighted runs created plus, and they're in the top 3 in runs scored. Like they're a really good offensive team, certainly, but they're also 2nd in starters ERA and 6th in bullpen ERA. Like they've actually pitched really well. And I think one of the things that's really exciting about this group is while the Cubs were a good young position player core with veteran pitchers, the White Sox have a lot of young pitching too. It's a little bit deeper in that regard. They're a little bit more balanced. They have some more veteran guys in that lineup now than maybe the Cubs had in 15. Maybe it's a little bit closer to 16 after the Cubs had added Hayward and Zobrist, but with guys like Grandal and Encarnacion and Abreu, they have the vets in there as well. And they have, really good young starters. I mean, Lucas Giolito is great. Dylan Cease has not figured it all out yet, but he's trending in the right direction. And their bullpen has been good, and they've done it without their best reliever in Aaron Bummer. So they're going to get Bummer back probably soon, which is good news and not a bummer. And then they're also probably going to get Carlos Rodon back here soon, which adds into that starting pitching depth we were talking about. Maybe Rodon goes to the pen, or maybe they move Dane Dunning to the pen, who's one of their good rookies. I mean, they have a pretty good collection of arms overall. They're a really fun team to watch right now. Really, really fun.
Mike, do you think this version of the Dodgers is better than the other ones in recent years?
Yeah, I do, but I don't think they're playing like it right now. I mean, I think, we were just actually talking about this on one of our broadcasts the other night, and our announcers were talking a little bit about the fact that this didn't feel like the same Dodger team. And I think it's because we'd just seen them play 3 really sloppy games against the Diamondbacks. And then they went out and played pretty sloppy last night against the Padres. They get Justin Turner back in the lineup tonight, which I think helps as an equalizer for them. Jansen isn't the same guy that he was, but the rest of the bullpen is pretty darn good. Kershaw is back to being, an elite level starting pitcher again. And I do think that they'll get better work from Walker Buehler down the stretch than they have to this point. So yeah, I think it's a more talented, deeper group than they have been. And they have, and that's even with guys who haven't gotten going yet, like Bellinger and Muncy really haven't, put up the numbers that we're accustomed to seeing them put up over the last couple of years. When they do, look out. Your hope is that you run them out of the playoffs before they get hot, because if they get hot, it could be all over but the shouting in the National League.
Watching Chris Bryant as I do every day, or most every day, he's
looking longingly into his eyes.
Looking longingly into another swing and a miss. And
remember that time he smiled though and threw the ball to first base?
I do remember that.
That's pretty cool.
Though that was great. It wasn't as funny as Javier Baez laughing as he's fielding the last ground ball and completing Alec Mills' no-hitter the other day. But watching Bryant and watching Christian Yelich struggle this season has just been incredible. And we were talking about the 2016 and 2018 National League most valuable players, and they look nothing like their former selves. Which of these guys has the best potential of maybe turning it around, assuming they're both in the postseason? The Cubs should be, and the Brewers are on the cusp.
Yeah, I mean, Yelich, the thing with Yelich that's really weird is I think he's second in the National League in strikeouts too, or third. I mean, it's like an absurdly high total for him. Who's got the best chance of figuring it out? I don't know. I mean, I think they're both, it's tough to say. I mean, I think they're both better players than what the numbers have shown. So you would want to bet on them both going forward. The Cubs are clearly better positioned. I don't think Milwaukee's making the playoffs. I just don't. I don't think that their offense is very good. I actually like their pitching a little bit. And Woodruff and Burns have been terrific in their rotation. And I think those are guys that are really good guys to build around. But man, they gutted that offense this winter by not bringing back Grandal and Moustakas, and then losing Lorenzo Cain when he decided to opt out. It really had a profound impact on their ability to score runs. And I think that's going to be a much bigger issue for them than what the Cubs' issues are, which are that they haven't been swinging well as a group lately. So I think if you're asking which one is going to has a chance to be better in the postseason, I would say it's Chris Bryant, because I think he's got a much better chance of making the postseason than Christian Yelich does at this point. But, if we were talking about this like it was a regular year and this was like May 15th, I don't think we'd be too concerned about either one of them. We'd just be expecting them to go off at some point. I mean, you can put Bellinger in that boat too. I mean, he's hitting like 210, I mean, Yelich was the runner up to him for the MVP last year, and Bellinger really has not done anything, and he's looked lost at the plate. He's completely changed his setup and it just doesn't look right. So I think there's I think Bryant probably, at least over Yelich, because he's going to get a chance to play in the playoffs. And I don't think the Yelich is going to.
Stibbs, do you have anything to say to Mike?
No, I'm not someone who likes to rub that kind of stuff in.
Okay.
Wait, what?
The Mariners just won the weekend series against the Diamondbacks.
Won 2 out of 3. Yeah, they did.
That's all. No, I wasn't going to say anything. You can blame Josh for bringing it up.
I just was asking. I was trying to be
on
nice.
Kyle Lewis.
He was trying to get you to do the heavy lifting for him.
Yeah,
is what it amounted to, right? Yeah, that's the kind of jerk he is.
Unfortunately, the Mariners are still 4.5 games out of the last playoff spot.
It's literally nothing.
No, they're not. They're a game and a half behind Houston. Remember, the top 2 teams in each division get in, and Houston is under 500.
Thank you.
You hate to see that.
They are a game and a half back.
Oh man.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, because I look at, and it's hard because it's such a wonky playoff system. But if you look at right now, you can go to MLB.com and click on postseason standings, and if you look at it in line, yes, you're right. It is. It's only a game and a half back of Houston, so there's a chance. How 2020 would it be, Stibbs, if your Mariners, Scott Service's Mariners, knocked out the Houston Astros?
It'd feel great.
I think there are a lot of people that would be rooting for the Mariners in that scenario, and the Astros have not been playing well. Kyle Lewis is really good. Like, he's a really good player, and the catch that he made yesterday was Griffey-esque. Cool. Homer in the first game. He's been scuffling a little bit at the plate. I think I don't think he's going to be a 300 hitter for his career, but I think he's a guy that hits in the 270s and is going to hit for power. And the fact that he's healthy enough to be able to play center field again is a huge deal, because he suffered a really significant knee injury shortly after he was drafted. But man, he's got an idea of what to do with the baseball, and he can hit. And he's a lot of fun. There's some fun players in that Mariners team. The catcher they got from the Padres, Luis Torrens, looked unbelievable this weekend. Ty France had a couple of home runs, who was kind of another piece that didn't really fit the Padres, but has put up big minor league numbers, a right-handed hitting power guy. So that may actually end up being a pretty good trade for the Mariners. There is a non-zero chance that they end up with 2 major league regulars out of that deal.
Well, Saturday, October the 17th might be a very special day in sports.
Why is that, John?
Because you could have a Game 7 in the American League Championship Series.
Nice.
And a Game 6 in the National League Championship Series. And the debut of University of Nebraska Cornhusker football.
That's pretty cool.
The day?
That's the day.
Well, you know what? We don't normally do this, but we're live in the stream. Ladies and gentlemen, it sounds like it may be official.
University of Nebraska football is on the air.
Folks, you never saw anything like it. Holy cow! Holy moly! Man, woman, and child did that. Put them in the aisle.
Try to tamper your enthusiasm.
So wait, how many teams are going to play this year in the Big Ten?
We don't know yet. It's actually not official.
We're not sure, but Jeff Petroikas, who works for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, has just put up a story that says Big Ten approves plan for 2020 football this fall, possibly starting as early as October 17th. That's official enough for me.
So Nebraska will play just well enough to avoid a bowl game, right? Like, that's
correct.
The whole plan, right?
4-5 type season for Nebraska, and then we have to start asking the question: is Scott Frost on the hot seat? Still hasn't gone above 500.
I mean, who would have had this figured out?
Mike Riley.
We hate our listeners. Hey, let's announce the big news with Mike Ferrin live on the air.
Listen, I did see somebody. You guys will appreciate this because you like jokes. Somebody pointed out today that on Twitter that what was it? Texas Tech has had 75 positive COVID cases or something on their football team. He said, "Really?" And the Big Ten is the one that's bungled this. Right?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year to say the least.
Yeah, and it's still not over. We got 3.5 more months of this stupid year.
Here's hoping that this year is one of a kind. That's my big hope.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, Mike, thanks for joining us. And
thanks for celebrating with us.
Yes, celebrating the return of Big Ten football.
Thanks for bringing up Mike Riley. I always laugh at those jokes. I don't know if our listeners do, but I do.
I don't care whether or not they do. It's still really funny to me.
Oh, also, Chris emailed in. He says, is Mike in studio today? He sounds like he's sitting next to you guys. Find out whatever phone he has and buy one for Mike Klaus. It is awesome. We do the video with you and a couple other people, but you are the best because you actually have a legitimate microphone instead of just using your computer.
I am a professional broadcaster.
Yeah.
And he always has a fan that's right positioned above his head that makes it look like he's wearing a beanie.
I know, it's awesome, isn't it?
Pretty cool.
At least you don't have a bald spot, because then it would really get
You don't
big.
know that. You don't know
No,
that.
that's true. That's true. All right, Mike. Talk to you next week.
All
Thanks.
right. See you guys later.
There
Mike.
he is, Mike Ferrin. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, according to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel,
Are you giving credit to anonymous sources here, John?
I'm giving credit to Jeff Petroikas.
And
I'm giving
where
credit
did he
to
get
Jeff
the information
Petroikas.
from?
I'm just giving credit to Jeff Petroikas. If he's a lying son of a gun, then we'll call him out for it. But he's actually coming out, and I mean, this is a first. I mean, usually all the stuff gets broken by somebody else. He gets to be the guy this time.
I love it. God, I hope it happens today. I just want this to be officially over today.
According to Petroikas, the starting date is unclear, but the latest proposal submitted to the Council of Presidents and Chancellors featured an October 17 kickoff, 8 games in a 9-week window, with the league championship game on December the 19th.
Day before the playoff is announced, and there are other conference championship games that day as well. Or excuse me, no, they're not. That is, no, they're just not listed here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's when the SEC is playing. That's when the Big 12 is playing, and the ACC. I believe all of those conference championship games are on the 19th.
Yes.
And then the 12th was that week that they built in just in case they needed to push some games back. Awesome. Let's hope that it's official during the show.
This isn't good enough for you?
No, it's good enough for me. I just want it to be like, now I want to do the fun stuff. I want to see the schedule. I want to see how many times they have to play Ohio State this year. You know, I want to see those types of things.
I don't know.
I can't wait.
They wouldn't have a schedule out that fast. Well, I don't think they would announce everything.
No,
with
that'd
a
probably
schedule.
be within the next couple of weeks.
With a schedule. Well, we'll see. All right. Well, we'll come back and we'll break all of that down.
Cool.
But also today, we're going to take a trip into another segment that will probably die in a couple of weeks.
What's that?
But has the intent of being a season-long thing.
Oh, yeah.
The NFL hot take market.
Yes.
We're going into the NFL hot take market. We're going to have takes that we believe and takes that we could be led to be believed.
We've talked into them.
Perhaps.
I have some takes.
Stibbs, any takes?
No.
No takes.
No takes from Stibbs. John and I will give you the takes.
We'll be back, and stand by, because it sounds like it's going to happen.
Stand by.
There's going to be football this fall, friends.
Stand by.
On 1620 The Zone.